And joining us now to take a look at the weather forecast for the week ahead and also recap what we've been seeing a little bit. Our good friend Eric Snodgrass with Nutrien joins us. Eric, good to catch up with you, buddy. It's very cold for many folks here to start the week off across the country, and I think a lot of folks are wondering first, what happened last week for some with that snow in parts of the northern plains and other areas, and then when is it going to warm up? I think that's the big question.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to think about what drove all of this. We had about 15 days ago a little blip in the trade winds over the Pacific, and the La Nina just let go for a second. And when it did that, it allowed for some other things to start to take over. And what we ended up getting out of that was the tail end of that pattern delivered a big snowstorm to parts of the western United States, packed up some snow, up to 4 feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada, and then came out into parts of Montana, Wyoming, and hit North and South Dakota. Some places in North Dakota had 18 inches of snow. It's interesting. You look at the soil moisture map from today, and you don't see the soil moisture change because it's all still sitting in the snowpack. It's got to melt to get in there. But we also saw some rain come over parts of the Mississippi basin, but really the harder better wheat belt was missed. Parts of the eastern corn belt were missed. And then we had Nicole, a late season tropical system, a hurricane that hit Florida, ran up the East Coast, and almost eliminated any worry about drought developing in that area. So that's where we were, and then that little blip in the trade winds then resulted in something else taking over, and that's a big, massive ridge that moved into Alaska. It's kind of paired up with another ridge over on the other side of the planet, over in Scandinavia. And at least from now through the week of Thanksgiving, we aren't going to be able to shake this pattern. So what that means is big, deep trough of low pressure in the Hudson Bay, a lot of cold air, ton of Great Lake effect snow. If you like it, get up there and see it. It's going to be something else. And just repeated shots of brutally cold air. And I feel a little guilty. I took my family to the Illinois-Purdue game on Saturday, and we sat outside in 30-mile-an-hour winds with 30-degree temperatures. My poor son couldn't walk. He was so cold. So I took one for the team there, but I'm ready to see a little bit of a pattern shift, but it may not be till after Thanksgiving.
Well, you mentioned some of that lake effect snow. Are we going to see any other areas of snow in the forecast this week, Eric?
Yeah, I got a system in Texas this morning. It's going to spread from there, basically the Ohio River Valley. So that'll put some rain down farther to the south, but mainly from parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Missouri, Illinois, northern Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin. That's a lot of states. We're going to see some snow. And then behind it, snow's going to come back into parts of Minnesota and Iowa and Wisconsin. New England's going to get hammered pretty hard as well with this upcoming pattern, just delivering quite a bit of cold air and snow there. But, decent chance of picking up a couple of inches out of this next couple of days here.
Eric, you mentioned the Mississippi. I want to circle back to that. How are we looking with this river level situation? I know it's going to take time, but are we seeing any sort of improvement from the last time we talked?
We are actually. I mean, the river currently is sitting at about 11 to 12 feet below low stage. But some of the forecasts for the river are starting to pull that up probably 5 or 6 feet over the next 5 or 6 days. So that means we'll only be 6 feet below low level, but it's a recovery nonetheless. But in order to keep the recovery going, we just have to have more moisture coming through. And you got a big ridge over Alaska and another one over Scandinavia, you're not going to get it. It's too cold. We get too much of our moisture in the form of snow rather than good soaking rain. So the river, it's still going to take several more weeks before we get up to a level that I think is going to be acceptable for moving barge traffic. But remember, we then get into the problem of where is it, like north of St. Louis?
Mm-hmm.
Certain date where the river, the traffic has to stop anyway. So we've already seen the worst of the effects of this. We just now need to see it coming up over the next couple of months.
Well, since we're talking cold weather and winter-like conditions here, and you mentioned not really anticipating pattern change until Thanksgiving, I know you got some new data on winter time coming up here. What are you looking at as we start to think about more snow flying and getting towards Christmas and into the new year?
Yeah, I'm going to say this first. We need to be very careful with the headlines. And what I mean by that is you might hear that the Climate Prediction Center, I mean, that's NOAA, that's us, that's our best climate forecasting office. They produce a statistical report that says the probability of having La Nina or El Nino or neither. And their latest update says that by December, January, February, there's still a 75% chance of La Nina. But they're very clear, as am I, that is an ocean temperature index, meaning, and remember, the ocean temperatures change very slowly. the atmosphere could lose its La Nina flavor by the time we get to the end of December. And that's what I'm watching carefully. Okay, what do we end up getting out of this? Now, if you keep the La Nina through December, there's better flow into the Western United States. Things tend to stay active across the rest of the US. And we're getting back into that after this blocking pattern we're in now. Next, we still see a lot of warm water in the North Pacific. The cold water is along the equator, but there's warm water in the North Pacific. That tends to drive more ridges into like the Aleutian Islands that then dip into the West Coast, meaning that most of the West into the plains and Midwest have a very active winter. Lots of chances of moisture returning, plus that means bigger snows. If there's a place that runs the risk of being drier, it's the Southeast to the Mid-Atlantic. But I think by midwinter, things are going to be so volatile. I'll be watching out for major shots at cold air coming out of the Canadian Prairie, like we're seeing right now, hit the East Coast. And I'm worried. I'm very worried about poor timing of maybe a polar vortex split, plus a big ridge in Alaska that shoves cold air across the eastern half of North America and at the same time over Europe, giving a big demand shock to our total energy market. So we're watching too many moving pieces right now. It's fun. I mean, I wake up every day like, what do I get to see now? But it's a bit challenging to kind of stitch it all together. But those are the things I'm thinking about.
Definitely. How about our friends in South America? I know we're watching their weather right now as we watch their planting and growing season. What's the latest there, Eric?
Yeah, so there's going to be a drier week ahead for a lot of Brazil, including southern Mato Grosso and then Mato Grosso do Sul, and then farther to the south into southern Brazil. Paraguay, Uruguay, and most of Argentina is going to be drier as well. There's a system coming through early next week, like next Tuesday, Wednesday, that might hit Buenos Aires. But what was important was the rains that recently came through Argentina, they were not as widespread in coverage as I think a lot of us had hoped, which means there are still some significant drought issues going on in Argentina. Now, Argentina is interesting. They have soil like I've got in Illinois, but they can plant over like a 3 to 4 month window if they want. So they're waiting. They're waiting till the moisture returns to get the crop in. It's not the same in Brazil. They have a very, very tight schedule. First crop beans, second crop corn. And if this La Nina lets go, just something to think about here. If it lets go, there is the risk that northern Brazil's growing areas have a drier second season for safrinha crop. So we got to watch it all and keep up on it, because given the global supply right now, I just think there's going to be a story coming out of South America going forward.
Well, Eric, great stuff as always. Any other final thoughts you have for us today?
You know, I think the only thing I am most concerned about is how many times are we going to get hit with cold weather like this winter, because I just can't get my mind off of the concern over the demand side of the energy equation with these cold shots of air.
Well, with that, we appreciate his time. Eric Snodgrass of Nutrien. You can sign up for his daily weather newsletter on our website as well, markettalkag.com. Eric, always a pleasure. Have a great week, sir.
Yeah, thank you.